This is cool, like, well, I'm the sniper, I should have the sniper.
Because he's so like,
you're a dude, you have guns, who cares what you were doing? The whole point was you're a vault hunter, and like the game, you're just trying to find the vault.
You say Tina and you have the bunny ears, all I can think about is Bob's Burgers.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, they kind of went with that angle.
Did they?
Welcome to the Juice Box Office podcast, where we take tabs on the latest juice in cinema. I'm Michael.
I'm Duncan.
And today we're going to be coming at you with Season 2, Episode 2, which is about Borderlands.
Borderlands.
So, this is a podcast where we like to have two different sections. We'll have a Pulp-Free section, and then we'll have a With-Pulp section. One has spoilers to whatever thing that we're going to be watching for that episode, and then one is where if you either don't care or if you come back and you see it and then you want to hear what our thoughts are about it, we'll be including a spoiler-based discussion about it. And what do we have this time?
Yeah, so Borderlands just came out August 9th.
Mm-hmm.
It's directed by Eli Roth, who you might know from Inglourious Bastards, Godzilla, King of the Monsters, one of those. Not gonna lie, I probably couldn't pick that Godzilla movie out in a pile of them. There's been so many, but
yeah,
definitely have a fun cast for this one. We have Ariana Greenblatt, Gina Gershon, Cate Blanchett, Jamie Lee Curtis, Kevin Hart, Jack Black, and a few more.
Yeah, so you mentioned that this movie came out. It is 2024 as we are recording this. And something that's really strange is that this one seems to be hearkening back to, it's a little bit of a mix, because I believe the two most successful Borderlands games, this is an adaptation based on a game. The original two that came out was Borderlands 2009. Okay. So Obama.
Yep.
And then Borderlands 2, which
the
is
presidential
Obama,
timeline.
Exactly. So this is a very interesting release, I think, for a lot of people. I think a lot of people were caught by surprise because Borderlands as a franchise is just in a really interesting spot. They've had two incredibly successful games that have had a large sort of following, basically. Borderlands 2, I think, is like the father almost of or perfection, I guess people would say, of the co-op looter shooter. And it's really kind of interesting because a lot of games nowadays kind of still try to copy what it did, but it just isn't able to capture the same thing. So I will just say that my personal experience with the series, I think we probably want to get that out in the front, in the limelight. I've played a good amount of Borderlands games, but not as deep as what a Borderlands fan. I would not consider myself a Borderlands fanboy. I like the franchise, but I played Borderlands 1 when it came out at my friend's house. I was in like middle school. Gosh, you shouldn't play that if you're in middle school. and I got Borderlands 2, and it was really funny because I had gotten Borderlands 2 the same year of Christmas as when I got a new TV. Ooh. And so I really wanted to play Borderlands 2 on my new TV, but my dad went in and he looked at the graphics of Borderlands, and I don't know if you're familiar with it. They're cartoony graphics. Oh, okay. It's not realistic at all. And he looked at it and he thought something was wrong with the TV. He said, like, is it really supposed to look like that? Yeah. Because everything was washed out. Yeah, everything is like cell shaded, like comic book style. Yeah. So there was a lot of stylistic choices, and maybe you could even tell with the actors and the costumes in the film that it's kind of comic booky with like the hairstyles and the different color schemes that exist between all the different characters. Okay. I know that we're kind of in the Pulp-Free version, but the story basically is going that I'm just going to preface this with a little bit of background from the game, so everyone here can kind of have context, because I know that you haven't.
Yeah, for me, like, I haven't played the game at all. I went into this with no background or like familiarity.
And I didn't make an attempt to educate you at all.
Yeah,
I wanted to see.
We kind of wanted a clean slate just to see like how I would interpret things.
You know, if it made you want to, the goal of it is probably for you to then consume.
Go try playing the game.
Go try playing it, right? Mm-hmm. Go play a 15-year-old game now.
Yeah. And I think it'll be interesting to talk about because, you know, you talk about Borderlands. I think you said Borderlands 2 was kind of the first to... What did you say? It was the first type of game?
So Borderlands 1, I think, is a very experimental in that it's a looter shooter where the whole point is you go with your buds, you blow up all the baddies in an area, and then you get these guns. And then it's oh, wow, look what I got. Oh, this is cool. Well, I'm the sniper. I should have the sniper. You know, things like that.
Yeah.
And then Borderlands 2 basically took that first game and, perfected it. And, made it, wow, chef's kiss.
Gotcha. Because what I keep thinking of is, and I haven't played a ton of games, but I have played Fallout. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of picturing it as being very similar to Fallout. Okay.
Yeah, I would say that's a pretty good comparison.
Okay.
In terms of tone, anyway.
Yeah.
I think it is that post-apocalyptic,
definitely
probably inspired by Mad Max again.
Yeah.
Style.
Oh,
everything's copying Mad Max, but whatever.
Yeah.
But
Deadpool and Wolverine.
Go see that one. So Borderlands 2, like I said. Borderlands 2, I think, is considered, most people you would ask them, they'd say that Borderlands 2 is very much a high point in the series. If it's not their favorite, it's probably their second or third favorite of the franchise. And there's the pre-sequel, there's Borderlands 3, there's Tales from the Borderlands, which is a spin-off series with the Telltale games where you... control a protagonist. There's no gameplay, but you're saying what they say, and it's a choose your own adventure book. So they made that, and that one was also very well received, but it kind of got canceled last minute, and it's whatever. Mm-hmm. So, and then they had Tiny Tina's D&D adventure. So it's kind of been having a bit of an identity issue ever since that second one came around, because what this movie... It's very interesting, and I'll kind of get into it now, but the way the first Borderlands game is, it's very much in the era of you're a dude, you have guns, who cares what you were doing? The whole point was you're a vault hunter, and the game, you're just trying to find the vault. Okay. That's the goal. You're I'm here to find the vault. Even in the movie, Marcus is in the movie, and I think in the marketing material, Lilith gets on the bus and Marcus takes you into town, and that's a direct reference to the first game where you're literally creating your character and you're sitting in the bus to be taken to the first town.
Okay.
So the movie doesn't start with that. It starts with some other exposition stuff that we'll get into, because really when I looked at the marketing materials of this movie, it was all pretty much on Pandora, and it was, I think, trying to evoke all the things that you would see in the game to make you want to go and try to see it. You'd see the Skags, you would see, them driving the different vehicles, the iconic loader is in there, even briefly. So that's cool or whatever.
That was my impression from the trailer. I expected it to be this kind of at least all one planet, and it mostly was. But
yeah, it's the entirety of the franchise is pretty much played on one, or the moon of the planet. That's the pre-sequel. But it's really funny because it has that core identity of the first game that, again, didn't have that much of emphasis on the story, and I think this movie... If you're a Borderlands fan, which I don't know how many there are in the world. I think Borderlands is always seen as a respected franchise, but people don't actually play them or anything like that. It would be Crysis or something like that. People know the name, but maybe they played it back when Obama was president, and then nowadays they don't really care about it. So the fact that this movie came out this year, a lot of people are kind of seeing it as they're trying to bait you, a nostalgia bait almost, right? Yeah. And I guess what I'm going to get at is that in terms of overall thoughts and opinions, if you're a fan of Borderlands, I don't think that you're going to be satisfied with this movie. I think that's the best way that I can put it.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to be upset or angry at it. You see the casting decisions, and we can maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
But you kind of look at it, and if you want to see it, maybe go see it. But I would advise a word of caution that it's kind of trying to fill a gap that exists with strange decisions that are based off of popular marketability. Because, as I might mention, at the start, I'm just going to get it out there so that people know. The main people you probably see would be Kevin Hart as Roland, the soldier, right?
Yep.
Kate Blanchett, who was Lilith, the siren, right? Claptrap's,
oh, that's okay.
Claptrap's there, right? Mm-hmm. And Duncan's not going to know anything about what I'm about to say. There is no Brick. Instead, Brick is Krieg. And instead of Mordecai, who is a sniper with a falcon, he's just not there, actually. I think that... so instead... Okay. Brick is a big, tanky, buff guy.
Yep.
He's supposed to be the tank character in the game.
Okay.
And Mordecai is the sniper. So each character has a different role in the team. Okay.
Yep.
So a lot of people would look at a movie called Borderlands, and you think of origin story. So if you're trying to get an origin story of this group of 4 Vault Hunters in the first game, you just need to know that they're changing things. Because, one, Tiny Tina has more plot relevance than really should. Because Tiny Tina is not even, to my knowledge, Tiny Tina is not in the first Borderlands game at all.
Oh.
Tiny Tina is in Borderlands 2.
Oh.
Tiny Tina is a side character on one set of missions on the way to... So it seems odd, right?
Yeah.
Because what is Tiny Tina... What did you think about Tiny Tina? Did you...
You say Tina and you have the bunny ears. All I can think about is Bob's Burgers. So,
well, they kind of went with that angle.
Did they?
Tiny Tina is supposed to be a 13-year-old explosives expert, and I think the whole point of her in Borderlands 2 is that you need to intercept a train through a Hyperion train, which that probably rings alarm bells as well. Because was Hyperion even mentioned in this movie? No. And it's because in the first Borderlands game, Atlas and the Crimson Raiders were the main villains.
Okay.
In Borderlands 2, it was Hyperion.
Oh.
So, which is basically a rival company.
Okay.
They're the 2 big mega companies, and they're off in their big bougie planet, but this whole hellscape hole, and they just kind of feed money into it, so they hopefully get to the vault. That's the plot of both games.
Okay.
And then you have characters that are also very prominent. Tannis is in the movie.
Yes.
And that's just a question mark. I think in terms of lore, that's pretty much the only character in Borderlands that actually explains the lore, because the game doesn't take itself very seriously.
Oh, it doesn't?
No. That's why, you have to remember, in the first Borderlands, you were a person on a bus. You had to go find the vault. It was 3 keys still.
Yeah.
And so...
But you're still just some person. You're not this person with this predefined...
They're not
destiny.
Roland, do you remember me from the Crimson Raiders?
Yeah.
And he's yes, I think I have a love interest with you, or something like that. And so... And there's, again, a whole thing. I think, personally, if you're going to make an origin story for Borderlands, and this is where it's coming up with the Pulp-Free review, I'm a little bit surprised that they picked Borderlands 1 to try to make the movie off of instead of Borderlands 2. For one, the antagonist in this movie, you don't see him in the trailers.
No. He's
not really relevant at all. I think he's just kind of the figurehead big bad guy.
Yeah.
He's not... I think he's just Atlas, I think is his name.
Yeah.
And that's because he's the CEO of Atlas.
Yeah.
But if you go to Borderlands 2, the villain of that game is Handsome Jack. And Handsome Jack is a loved... If you want to talk about fan service, that's what you do. You get a Jim Carrey type to play a psychopathic, like, Handsome Jack, who's because Handsome Jack is basically the person who, like, calls you on the phone to taunt you, like, after every mission. And he'll be like, yeah, well, I'm so rich, and, like, I'm gonna do this. Oh, what's that? You're all gonna die, and, like, I'm here. This movie just didn't have any of that sort of kind of edgy charm. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, I agree.
Did you think... I want to know this for you, right? And we're in the spoiler-free, so... Or still no spoilers here.
Yep.
What would you say, like, I think the action's good. Let's start with that.
Yep.
Right? I think the action scenes are great.
I agree.
What about the comedy?
Comedy... I found myself kind of giggling at little things here and there. Obviously, like, I think Claptrap was supposed to be most of the comedic relief because and maybe this is how he is in the games too, but he kind of has some comedy programmed into him. I wouldn't say it was, like, super funny, probably not even as funny as your average Marvel movie. What did you think with the comedy?
So... What did I think? Okay. Right. So I think Borderlands.
Is it normally is there a lot of comedy in the game?
We need to remember, okay, that there may be a bias here, but I don't think there is. Product of its time, 2009, 2012. That, like, it's kind of like internet, like, kind of pop culture-y funny, which back then was hilarious.
Yeah.
It's one of the most well-written games ever.
Really?
I would say.
Yeah.
I think most people would say that the writing in Borderlands 2 specifically is very, very good. I think that one of the issues that, and the way that this movie reviewed, it's like 9% with critics. There was a meme that it was at 0% with critics on the opening night.
Wow.
And I think it's like 49% with audiences. So we know, audiences are more based than critics.
Yeah.
But that's still, not passing. It's still rotten.
No,
right?
It's rotten.
So I think the issue is that all the characters are kind of assholes.
You can't root for anyone. Yeah.
Did you get that sort of impression?
Well,
like, think about, you mentioned Fallout, right?
Yeah.
Or you think about Mad Max. In a post-apocalyptic scenario, these characters are usually pretty self-serving.
Yep.
They have, like, their goal, and they're okay with, like, double-crossing whatever, and that's a vibe, whatever. Maybe it's a part of the setting.
Yeah.
But I think that aside from, like, Roland, who makes sense because he's supposed to be, like, the noble soldier character. In the game, he's called the Soldier. He's the soldier character. Everyone is just kind of generally mean. Even Claptrap. Which Claptrap was... In the game, he's not really mean. He's supposed to be self-deprecating. He's a joke character. He
wasn't really self-deprecating at all. He always just was like, I'd be really glad if you were dead. Yeah.
I think that might be more edgy. I don't know what it is. So what I wrote down, because I think the hot topic with this movie is going to be the casting decisions. And that's something you'd see right away.
Okay.
A lot of people look at it. It's Borderlands. Borderlands 1 came out in 2009. You had names like Kevin Hart. You have Kate Blanchett. You have Jamie Lee Curtis. You have Jack Black. These are all safe A-list celebrities.
Yeah.
I think those people as actors do a good job at interpreting what their character means to them. I think that what they thought in their head of what these characters would do in certain situations, I think they did a good job in that.
Okay.
The problem is that does not line up that much at all with what happens in the games. For one, with Roland and Lilith, right? Again, in the first game, you're dude whatever. Like, you're dude with gun. There's no story there.
Yeah.
In Borderlands 2, you don't play as those same four characters. They're side characters, and then they actually get a backstory. You play as four new characters who is dude with gun, and you don't really have a backstory. But now you see Lilith, doing Lilith, and you're learning a little bit more about Lilith in Borderlands 2.
Okay.
And so this movie, Lilith is the main character. The story follows Lilith.
Right.
It's just we'll probably get into it in the spoiler section. But that's kind of my piece about it. So in terms of recommendations,
yes,
right, and then we could talk about other things too, about strengths and weaknesses, the environment around it and stuff like that.
Right.
I think I'm just gonna cheat. I think you should see Deadpool and Wolverine before you see that.
Definitely.
I think this is 100% maybe not 100%, but I think you can skip this one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's going to be a blockbuster sensation.
No.
To me, it's like there's a big taboo in the film industry of video game adaptation movies. They used to have such a bad rap.
Yeah.
And then movies like Mortal Kombat came out, Super Mario Bros. Movie came out. If you compare this movie to those movies, this is like the references that are there, they're not even like, I don't know, they're just like not...
Just not even worth the time.
They're not even worth it.
Yeah.
Because the fan servicey characters, the recognizable faces they picked to be the protagonists of this, because again, remember 1 and 2 are like the 2 Golden Goose games.
Okay.
If you like really wanted to know like a little bit more about them, this is almost like a remix, I think, I guess is a better way to describe it, because there are like other adaptations where they will like take it, but it's like, oh, I'm thinking like, unfortunately it's a video game, but like the Final Fantasy VII remake, where it's like basically the same story, except it's like in this scene, instead of this person dying, it's like, oh, that person survived. And it's like, now this person died. And so the rest of the remake, you're like, something else is happening.
It's totally different.
So this is like basically, what if Tiny Tina and Krieg were in the Borderlands 1 games instead of Brick and Mordecai.
Oh. Okay.
And even then, like, I'm sorry, like, maybe controversial, because Tiny Tina is a very controversial character.
Is she?
It's a 13-year-old that has some funny lines, especially in the later games, but at first is definitely a product of its time, of a lol so random, I'm gonna blow you up in the face. Like, I think, minor spoiler, she calls the badonkadonks are in the, like, there, and that's like one of your missions in order to derail this train, is you have to collect the badonkadonks, and you're like, what are the badonkadonks? They're like, oh, they're C4 explosives with like, because she's a demolitions expert, and you know, still like, so it's just kind of like, a lot of people would just say it's weird, which you know, if you're a hardcore masculine gamer, I understand, but it's Borderlands, it's like different. So but the references they do make, if it's trying really hard to be like the first one, I guess you would expect there to be more representation from the first Borderlands game, and that if they were gonna bring in people like Tiny Tina, it would go into the second one. But they want to be different, and I kind of understand that. The problem is that I think I would have much rather recommended, or much rather wanted to see, if they wanted to do an origin for Borderlands, just go all in, just like have the 4 people and everything's happening to them. I think that Borderlands 2 makes a better debut movie, and then you can like go in. I think Borderlands 2, if I were to recommend what to start with, I would recommend people play Borderlands 2 before Borderlands 1. I think that it's just better. So what about from your angle, right? I don't mean to sour it, but try to remember what it was like beforehand, before I basically crapped all over how it wasn't really like the games at all. There will be more, I'm sure.
You think there will be more games or more?
No, there will be more crapping on Borderlands.
Oh, more crapping. Okay, I was like, okay. Yeah, I guess I'll start with, I wouldn't recommend seeing it. I don't think it's really worth the time. I guess from what I understand as the whole story for bringing this adaptation to production was that it's actually kind of been a decade at least in the works from when like writers started getting involved with it and different directors.
It's been a long time.
I guess there's been a lot of swaps and changes between directors, but even with the filming, we were talking about like they wrapped filming in like mid 2021. Here we are 3 years later. So like, and you know, maybe that's kind of a regular, especially with like the pandemic, that's kind of a typical film release delay now. But that stood out to me. And when something's sitting so long before it even gets released, I feel like, Well, the other part of the story is the reshoots, and that's the other part of the reason why there was that gap between filming and release. And I think that it contributes a lot to some of its main weaknesses. I'm trying to think if I want to save this part for later. I see some production and like finishing weaknesses that were very similar to what you see in Madame Web.
Yeah.
And not other films similar to that are not coming to mind at the moment, but I saw some just poor production quality in
just
that
kind of
sense.
ramped suddenly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
here's another question for you.
Sure.
When we were planning out our schedule for the year, and I said, okay, how about this week we go see Borderlands? Mm-hmm. Were you personally excited for that or not?
I was not personally excited. Okay. I think my impression was, okay, I've not really heard of this video game. I've never really heard anyone rave about it, so it's probably just kind of seems like a mid-tier kind of thing. Mm. And it's just another one of those, like, I'm not crazy about any of the video game film adaptations. So, for me, my perspective is that it's just kind of a, let's make some more money on this franchise. And so I think this is Borderlands' attempt at that, and I don't think they're going to be pleased with the results.
Nope, they're not. They are not. No. Yeah. It's a little bit interesting because... in terms of like other things that this would be comparable to, the games is the main thing that you'd want to do. When there's a Steam sale, get Borderlands 2. It's $5. I wouldn't see this in theaters. I maybe wait for streaming and then watch it if you're like baked or something and you want to like. I wouldn't even say the visual effects are even that crazy. There's some things that like kind of even hurt my head with like some strange effects and like lighting choices that they made, and I think they were trying to look cool, but overall it just didn't land for me.
Well, that's another thing I wanted to touch on with, as I was kind of comparing this to Fallout, I was wondering, okay, which was first, the chicken or the egg? Like, did Fallout get some inspiration? Fallout was first?
Fallout's first.
Okay. So my interpretation of Borderlands overall as a franchise is that, one, it's trying to be quirky and different just for the sake of being quirky and different.
Correct.
Two, it's pulled all of its like world building and pieces and details and things from other franchises, other worlds, Fallout. You got a planet named Pandora. There were just many elements that I saw in the world building that were like, okay, I get it. It's difficult to create something that's brand new. It's like, yes, you have this like Mad Max feel on a post-apocalyptic world, like, and it's the whole like, oh, everything sucks under this corporate.
Aren't corporations really crappy?
Yeah,
man,
like,
they ruin everything. Those corporations.
Narrative. Yeah.
So
it wasn't, I guess all that to say is it wasn't anything like special or different, and I think that's another reason why, as someone who's not familiar with the games or not a fan of the games, it's hard to get on board with it even just as the film. I think because it doesn't have anything like special.
I think I can kind of describe the hype. I think that there was an image where I think they were silhouetted people and it says Borderlands movie coming soon. And I believe there were actually some people that were pretty excited, like, this looks pretty cool. Okay. And then they had the first trailer where again they showed a lot of the casting decisions, and I think a lot of people went, oh crap.
Yeah. Speaking of casting decisions, I think my least favorite is Tiny Tina with Ariana Greenblatt.
Yep.
And that's because she has some other recent roles that I didn't like. So I went into this knowing that I wasn't really going to like her in this movie. And unfortunately, she didn't perform well, in my opinion, either, so that didn't help. No. I didn't like her as Ahsoka Tano. She played a younger version of Ahsoka Tano in the Ahsoka show. Okay. And Ahsoka Tano is my absolutely favorite character in Star Wars. So to see someone mess that up, I didn't like. I forget who else she did recently. I think she did another like younger version of someone who I just think she's a weak actor. just go out and say it. And I think that was reflected here too. And maybe some of that is because if she was filming that in 2021, and maybe Ahsoka was filmed after that or later, maybe she's been getting a little bit better. But yeah. What other casting? Were there any other particular?
I think maybe talk about like a dream casting, and I was thinking about it halfway to the movie. Again, I think Kevin Hart isn't as bad as people are going to say he is. But, I think Idris Elba would have been a lot cooler.
Oh, yeah?
Because Roland's supposed to be, like, a straight-faced kind of soldier dude.
Yeah.
But he still had some Kevin Hart-isms where he's like, I'm blasting your guts. Like, yeah, come get some. I'm super cool. And... Roland was just never really that kind of person. Jack Black as Claptrap is just kind of funny to me. We were talking about this earlier, but I was trying to figure out who the voice was to Claptrap. Couldn't think of it the whole time. I also forgot, I knew that Jack Black was in it, but I forgot that I just wasn't looking for him anywhere. I forgot that he was in it, and I never put it together that Jack Black was playing Claptrap. Yeah. So... I think that we're pretty much good with our Pulp-Free section, believe it or not. I mean, I think that, I don't really think any of you that are watching probably are going to want to pause the video when we get to our With-Pulp section. But if you want, we're going to start our intermission right about now.
Yep.
And let's do that.
Yeah, let's move into it. Okay, let's get back into it. So we're in the With-Pulp section. We're going to include some spoilers now. So again, if you are still planning to see it for some reason,
go for it.
Now's your chance.
Sometimes you just want to watch something that's not up to snuff. Mm-hmm. So you can poke fun at it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we were looking at previous things we've seen. And,
that's right.
there weren't a lot that we've rated poorly. So it's good to kind of get some variety in there.
That's right.
Maybe not rave about everything you see. So
yeah, we can't make it. I mean, again, when we pick these topics for this show, I think not all of it is like we are watching it because we think it's going to be good. Mm-hmm. I think it's because we just want to see how it turns out.
Right.
And Borderlands, to me, I'm like a person where I'll watch a trailer and I'll like kind of feel like emotions, I guess. Uh-huh. I think more than the average person. Huh. I'll be like if I really super cared, let's say they're making like a Call of Duty movie, mm-hmm. like let's say, and then you show like Captain Price from Call of Duty in the movie, I'd be like, oh, that's like really cool, and I'd like feel like everything, and they're gonna make it look cool because it's like a trailer shot or whatever. Yeah. And I'd still go see the Call of Duty movie, even though I know that it's probably just going to be really bad, and that the game's going to be better. But I think that it'd still be interesting. That, and I don't know. I just vote with your wallet, I guess. And pretty much. I like video game movies just in general. It's like a little bit of a vice, even if it's not one that's this good. Like I was going to see the Mario movie, even if the Mario movie wasn't going to be good. Yeah. For example, now that was an example where. Hip Hip Hooray, everyone liked that mm-hmm. movie, but I think that especially a lot of people were creating a lot of content of like, is this gonna flop? Like it's mm-hmm. freaking Illumination, like they're gonna like put minions in it. They're gonna minionize it. Alright, so let's start with the very first scene of this movie. Alright. Now let me tell you how every first scene in Borderlands starts out in the game is that it's Marcus saying, let me tell you a story. This time, it's there, but I don't know who is narrating. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's, I don't know, like Lilith is narrating. It was Lilith. I think it is just Lilith because she's like talking about how crappy everything is, basically. Yeah. But it wasn't Marcus. Little sad. Okay. But it's like, okay. Didn't even say let's start with a story. I think she said something adjacent to it. Yeah. But it's like, I think maybe she's like, this is a tale, or I think maybe she even said like, this is Iridia, and like goes into like the like alien origins of like the planet or whatever.
It was a quick little origin story. Like here's why here's why things are the way they are in this planet Pandora.
Because the games require you, again, you have to remember, you're just a dude. The game just basically says like, this is a vault, and like everyone in this planet is fighting over the vault, and to the point where it's uninhabitable and no one can find it.
Yeah.
But legend holds that some heroes will figure it out, and then that's like where it goes to the like battle bus, whatever.
Okay.
So the game does not start on Pandora. It starts on a. Go ahead and tell us more where it starts.
Okay. You said the game, so I thought you were saying where more of the game
you tell us where we're starting.
Yeah, so we actually start, because we are focusing with Lilith as the main character, we start on her planet, which the name is escaping me, but it is 50 light years...
Promethea?
Oh, it's Promethea, yeah. Promethea. It's 50 light years away from Pandora. We kind of get a build-up of this bounty hunter character. She's bringing in a bounty into the bar, and that's where she's approached by Atlas to kind of give her this mission that's going to take her on this journey.
Yeah. And
this mission is to retrieve the kidnapped daughter of Atlas, who we actually saw, before. This is what you were going for.
It's okay.
You were going, because I'm remembering it now.
We made it.
We started out on the space station where the kidnapping of Tiny Tina is occurring. And we see this is done by Roland. They pick up one of the do they call them just psychos?
So they were like psychos that were in prison, but Krieg is one that's like a high-functioning psycho, is what, he's a character in Borderlands 2 as well. People, I think that maybe even during screen testing, like if you look at the cover of Borderlands, it's a psycho on the cover.
Yep, that's what's most like always recognizable.
Always iconic.
Yeah.
So I think that, I know that I complained about it not being like Brick, for example. That's like the muscle guy. But, you know. Hello, Kitty. What's going on, Kitty?
What are we doing?
You can be in the episode. Why not? So I know that I complained earlier that Brick was kind of replaced, like shoved to the sideline. In all, I'm trying to like put my head in the shoes of somebody that's like looking to promote the IP,
making these decisions.
It sort of makes sense that they put in a psycho as one of the main characters, although he's not actually really do anything at all. He's just there to look cool. He has the chainsaw club, which, you know, is cool. It has a couple of moments. It gets like a cracked mask and stuff like that. That's just a cool character. You can't really blame. I think that was a good call. I'm going to give it a pass there. So immediately that happens. I'm like, oh, Krieg's here. I think I knew Krieg was in the movie beforehand, but he's Tiny Tina's bodyguard, or he's like just another person who is able to care for her well-being, because you kidnap a really important asset to the Atlas Corporation. And you're obviously going to have to go on the run. So what better place to go on the run than Pandora? So they go to run Pandora, and you mention it, and it's like Lilith is in a bar. She talks to her friend barkeeper, who has no relevance in the game series. And suddenly it's like, wow, I just did this really hard job. My life sucks as a bounty hunter.
Getting too old for this.
Maybe trying to like go for the whole... I want something bigger, you know, like is a familiar theme in other movies, but it comes at you in the third minute, and then basically is convinced by the Atlas Corporation, because she's obviously a mercenary vault dweller, vault hunter, vault dwellers, vault hound.
Fallout vaults.
I'm going to put Kitty down here. Sorry. Is convinced by Atlas with money to go back down to Pandora, which immediately is almost interesting, especially when you think about later on in the movie, because she has connections in Pandora that are borderline traumatic. So, I mean, I guess whatever. Like,
I thought she was swayed by the money a little fast, but yeah.
And that's another thing too. Like, again, I'm talking about like Borderlands 1. It's very much your dude, whatever. Like it's sort of, you're almost like a D&D character. You can kind of like make up your own reason. Eventually, at first it's like about the money, and then obviously later on it's about like, oh, I got all these like friends that I can like help, and that you do quests for them, and then even if the quests involve a lot of murder, it's still like fun, and it's like, or they're funny. And so that's like your way of interacting with things. So it's like, okay, whatever. You get Lilith, she lands in the Atlas pod, and then she boards the battle bus with Marcus. Funny scene. I'm glad they put Marcus in it, right? You're missing Zed. So Dr. Zed is a character in Borderlands 1 who's basically like, he's the person that is your like tutorial into the town. Like Marcus will take you on the bus, he drops you off, and then your first quest is for Dr. Zed. And he basically is like almost like the tutorial guy. But Zed's not in the movie. Honestly, who cares? Zed is like, he's supposed to just be like, he's a mad doctor. He's like, oh man, I'm gonna harvest other people's organs to like save my patient or whatever. I don't know. He's like a mad scientist. And again, like, whatever. I'm not gonna complain, but it's just keep a tally. I'm not going to put one on the screen, but you could kind of keep a mental tally. So, no Zed, which I was a little bit disappointed in. Again, he's supposed to be in like Firestone. Then, after that, she ends up...
This is where Claptrap comes in, isn't it? Right.
So... Lilith has like no leads or whatever. Like, can see the wanted poster of Roland, who again we already saw like had kidnapped Tiny Tina.
Rescued is what they were saying.
Rescued, captured, whatever. But in the end, Claptrap comes in, says like, "Hey, what's up? I'm like your personal assistant. I'm really good at things. I have this ability that you're gonna have to use, and you're gonna have to deal with me in order to get what you want." So it's that kind of dynamic, which isn't very whatever. It's like
it's a common character theme I've seen, and of course I can't think of examples right now, but it's this super upbeat, like, kind of random character that just weasels their way in, and they end up being useful or significant. I don't really think that you can really knock Borderlands for making this sort of dynamic, although it's just really weird that it's between Lilith and Claptrap. It's like just not a combination you're really used to. It's because Lilith is the main character. But you get introduced to Claptrap. Claptrap shows his ability to absorb lead, and he is basically undying. He gets booted back up, and again, Claptrap, at least in Borderlands 2, he's like your tutorial person. So a lot of people know he's very iconic in that sense as well. He has a lot of funny jokes. You can watch like funniest Claptrap moments on the internet, and it's he. End credit scene where they reference his little dance at his birthday party where he's the only one that was invited. So there's a lot of things, but honestly, there's not a whole lot. We're like, at this point now, we're like 20 minutes into the movie. That's like the weird part. They do a lot of this world building, and I think there's a lot of like digital art. I don't know if they're real places, but maybe they're like altered somehow, where they're showing like the wasteland in Pandora, and that checks out. Like the whole graffiti everywhere, the like scaffolding, the random shacks, the like towns that they're in look like trash piles, like we'd actually see in like real life. Much more than like in the game, which I think is good. So like I think the setting is very good. Again, it's Borderlands 1, so it's mainly desert. Borderlands 2 tries really hard to have varied environments. Instead of it just being the desert area, there's like the tundra, and there's the desert still, and then there's like a greener, like with lakes and stuff. So but no, they're definitely still just trying to go with what it's known for, which is like desert. There's skags, there's different monsters that you kind of see like poke around. There's not really that much of a focus on them, so if you're gonna look at like somebody getting eaten by a skag or get
like pooped on by a rak, which is like a foreign language to Duncan, but they're there, they just don't do anything. They're set pieces.
Yeah.
So
they are.
it's sometimes it's like the setting, and that's just kind of a general theme throughout the movie. It seems like that this could be reskinned as another movie.
Really?
I think that you could have it like just change the names of people. Maybe it involves, maybe you don't even need to have it be in like another planet. Like you just pretend it's not like a megacorp, but it's like someone with special powers. As long as you have like the whole like I guess appeal behind the setting is that it's like magic plus guns. And back in the day that was actually something that people didn't really experiment with much. Maybe like Quake like sort of had that sort of atmosphere where it was very gun heavy, but there's also an essence of like magic that made it an interesting setting to be in.
Yeah.
Fallout doesn't have magic. It has mainly technology and stuff like
technology.
That. So I think that it's kind of interesting that you mentioned the different inspirations, because I almost feel like Borderlands, just as a franchise in general, could be almost like someone's D&D campaign. Where like you have different characters with different special abilities and different like personalities, to the point where they even made Tiny Tina's like D&D adventure. Like I think there might even be an official D&D module on it. But the most recent game is like Tiny Tina's Wonderland, which is like the whole point of the game is that you're like the pawn and Tiny Tina's telling the game around you.
Okay.
And then like funny things will happen where like you'll try to suddenly swap out a monster or something like that, and it's like haha, it's meta and funny. But back on track, right?
Yes.
Find Lilith, not Lilith. You find Tiny Tina.
Yep.
She's in a rail yard, which, to the game's credit, in Borderlands 2, the whole point of Tiny Tina was to blow up a train.
Okay.
And so that's where they found Tiny Tina here. So go a little bit more into that scene.
Yeah, so it kind of starts off as Lilith is kind of relieved she finds Tiny Tina. Tiny Tina seems to kind of be relieved that she was found. Like, she had a pretty good little shack set up, but kind of played it off as like, oh, I needed rescuing. But then things kind of turn. That's where she kind of starts using her explosives right away against Lilith and realizes that she's another bounty hunter that her father sent after her, and she doesn't want that. So then you also bring in the was it the Crimson something?
Crimson Lance is in there.
Crimson, okay. They're also trying to, like, everyone's after Tiny Tina pretty much.
Yeah, there's like an all hands on deck, right? So it's like, OMG, this really important person like got kidnapped from our space station. There's a big reward, and then we really need to find her because she's revealed to be like kind of a created person that is designed to be like a key to the vault. Right.
The daughter of Iridia is what is supposed to be.
So it's like a little bit of genetic material that was found on one of the keys to the vault. And again, the whole thing is like the vault has like the secret in order to basically conquer the planet. That's more or less like what it's at least like a symbol of. Like, you have to kind of think of it as like a symbol. When you were you ever what did you think about Tiny Tina when for that first scene where you actually started to interact with her? Did you think that was going to happen?
No, it felt really out of character, at least from what I expected. Like, I think I was okay with going along with she's this person to rescue. Maybe she's not totally tiny and like innocent and without capabilities, but I didn't expect her to be like against Lilith so much.
Did you expect her to be Kaboom Kid?
No, I didn't.
Right. And I think that's one of the issues, because I knew that Tiny Tina is Kaboom Kid, and that she's also random, and that she looks like an innocent little kid, but in reality she's like a really messed up person who like tortures people in like a cave and stuff.
Yikes.
Like, has like a sick, twisted, like sort of like, I'll capture a bandit and I'll put him in a tea party and then I'll feed him like a crumpet, and then he'll be called like Mr. Mr. Fizzle. I'll have to look at what that reference is, but it's a quest in the game. But anyway, and then with the badonkadonks, I know that you were confused with that, but again, already explained that one.
Yep.
So the point is, there's a great action scene.
Yeah, so it gets a little bit chaotic because now Tiny Tina's kind of going after Lilith, but then, what is it again? The Crimson
Lance, interrupt.
Yeah, they interrupt. They're going after both of them at that point. And then that's when Roland comes in, and this is the whole chaotic scene that creates the team up.
Yeah.
Everyone's trying to survive these attacks, and now we're just trying to get away at this point.
Yeah. Yep, good action scene. I mean, it's not that remarkable. It's they fight, they jump, they're on like a falling train. They spent way too much time on like this train's falling, we have to get down.
Yeah.
It lasted for like 45 seconds. I'm like, okay, you could have just jumped down. Or if someone was gonna get hurt, then get low.
And a lot of it was bad CG too.
They
switched from like CG to a practical.
Something happened.
Yeah.
Kevin Hart, also known as Roland, comes in with the truck, not the original Borderlands car. Obviously, it's going to be hard to get like a practical version of that because it's like a really weird, like almost like Rover, where it has like the front tires and it has like the back.
Yeah,
it showed up, I think, in one.
They had it. Lilith drove it to.
She drove it to the place, but then it like blew up, and then now they're only using the technicals now.
Yeah.
It's like whatever.
Yeah.
So there's a high-speed chase. They lose him. Long story short, they lose him in the they're so crazy. They're going to die in there because no one would want to go in there.
Yeah, it's like, of course they went in there.
It's a thresher field, which threshers, I think, are just basically, for lack of a better term, they're like Sarlacc pit monsters with tentacles.
That's what it seems like.
It was filled with like urine and poo.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of on brand in terms of Borderlands humor. It's like, wow, this smells bad. But then they basically, I don't really feel like I need to finish the rest of the scene description because it ends up with with Roland's quick thinking, they get away.
Yeah.
And, they go through the Sarlacc pit monster and like when they thought that, oh crap, we can't go back the way we can. Yeah, so.
Right.
I think that we could just kind of skip through that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Eventually, it basically said, Roland is obviously very apprehensive about accepting Lilith because Lilith was sent to grab Tina and give to Daddy.
Right.
And then, so, in the end, Lilith's like, well, they just shot at me, so now we're a team. Right.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. Lilith realized that... Oh, yeah, because they went after her to... Well, I don't know.
Well, I think it was basically it was like the oh no, I was betrayed moment. Like, it's not going to be as easy at this point. Her little she was given a beacon to press to personally get the boss to grab the Tiny Tina and to leave, and then she get paid a lot of money presumably, but. Now she is now a part of this in the crossfire between this relationship between Roland, who's an ex-Crimson Lance officer, and person that wasn't in the original Border. I think is credited as Nox.
Yeah,
I don't think this person. Maybe they're a minor character in one of the games, but not memorable. She's kind of I think anticipated as the bad sergeant who's I'm here to follow orders and you are treasonous.
Yep, exactly.
And so it's fine. And now that Lilith knows she's in the crossfire, she's well, not on her side, so I guess it means on your side.
Yep.
So there's a little bit of they go into Sanctuary, which is kind of their safe place.
Right. And this is where you see the first of Lilith's connections to people that she knew when she was there. And they kind of find Sanctuary with Moxie, who's kind of the owner of this bar there, right? And that's where I want to touch on some of the relationship building and the interactions between characters. I think overall they were weak. You look at this dialogue between Moxie and Lilith, and Moxie is someone who remembers Lilith mainly as someone who she remembers as the way her mother described her. It's oh, your mother always said you were so special, blah, blah, blah. and it just wasn't genuine. It wasn't there for me. Like, I don't know. It's like they kind of did the bare minimum to say like, oh, this person recognizes you.
To my knowledge, the stuff about Lilith's mom, we're in the spoiler section. Stuff about Lilith's mom was completely just for this movie.
Was it?
It was never talked about in the game. Again, you're a dude.
Yeah.
So like, it was never mentioned like your mom used to be a vault hunter. I thought at first I was like, huh, okay, that might be interesting.
Yeah.
Like to hear about like maybe what like a previous group would have done, because every subsequent numbered Borderlands game, which keep in mind there's only 3, has had like a new crew because they want to put in new game mechanics and new skill trees, whatever. So like there's always new people. So it's like, oh wow, that'd be cool to know what like the Borderlands 0 like people were like, right? With like, you know, Lilith's mom, or like was she a siren? Like that's really cool. But no, they really fumbled.
Interesting.
No, they really fumbled that. Yeah. And you're right, the dialogue just seemed really unnatural.
Yeah.
It was like, I remember you. Like, of course I remember you, you 9-year-old, and now you're like 28. Or maybe you're supposed to be passing for 28. I
completely remember you, yeah.
Cate Blanchett's pretty old. So, I don't know if we were anticipating, you know...
was her character is supposed to be 28? Because she even said in the beginning, like, I'm getting too old for this. Like, I don't think...
Again, that was never, ever implied in the original games, that these were... I think they were supposed to be experienced-ish.
Yeah.
But it's like a level 1 D&D character where you, like, aren't actually that powerful, and you just have, like, you're just a little bit more special than the next person below you.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
Obviously, in the bar, Lilith was like, pew, pew, pew. Like, I've been doing this a while. But... obviously, that's like sort of, it's neither here nor there. I mean, I just wasn't really impressed with it. It seemed kind of forced that we just needed to put Moxie in the movie.
Yeah, and Moxie as a character was a little bit overdone, mainly with her accent.
Her accent was very distracting.
Yeah, it was.
And I don't even think Moxie in the game sounds nearly that like Southern.
Really.
They have like, you know, she'll call people sugar and like stuff like that, but I don't think it was like, oh, you're like maybe I'm wrong and I just need to play the games again, but I think that like it's almost like someone told like Moxie has like a Southern accent, and then the actor who's very good at acting is okay, I can play someone with a Texan accent, and then that's what they do.
Yeah.
So like again, it's just like I feel like the people making the movie just didn't know the source material that well, mainly because there wasn't a whole lot there, because you're talking about making a movie about Borderlands 1 with some bits and pieces from Borderlands 2.
Yeah.
And I think that like the set design and maybe the concept artists were really good and the costumes were really good.
Oh, yeah.
But when it came to like writing the dialogue in the script, that something just wasn't clicking there.
No, I think it like sort of close to what you were saying is there were a lot of strong individual elements between different characters, but it was incohesive. Like they just didn't work well together. And I think part of that a lot of it could have been because of reshoots and such, because I mentioned earlier, there were parts that was like, it was so much like Madame Web, where you have someone's mouth moving and the sound is not what their mouth is making, or you just have off-screen vocals, where this happened a lot. I first noticed it between the first interactions between Lilith and Claptrap. It would pan to Claptrap while Lilith was speaking.
Okay.
And then there was a lot of that where it even did it towards the end of the movie, towards the climax, where who's the big like tank guy, the psycho? What was
Creed.
His name? Creed. He like said something off screen, but then it like showed his face really quick and like flipped, and I was like, that was just oddly noticeable. Like that was just sloppy. I don't know.
I definitely think that it's not just the fact. It's not just the fact that it's hard to do that with, again, the source material.
Yeah.
But what they did, like, try to make and piece together, it just didn't connect.
No.
And I think that So yeah, I definitely think that there's a lot of like improvement there. Which again, it really is just weird because Borderlands as a video game series is so well known for its writing. It wins a lot of awards for its writing.
That's too bad.
And like jokes and like there's a lot of dialogue in it, and everybody seems to have like thoughts about someone else, like oh, Tannis, she's kind of crazy. And I'm just gonna go on a diatribe about Tannis because that's what's next in the movie. Moxie, perfectly serviceable. I think that as like cool bartender lady that is a little promiscuous, like fine. I think that's a good ad. Tannis, on the other hand, I think that Jamie Lee Curtis was going for like Sheldon Cooper, mad scientist. She is supposed to be like a book nerd, but she was speaking in a way that just seemed very unnatural. And by the way, Tannis is not on a lot of people's top 10 list when it comes to favorite Borderlands characters. But as I kind of mentioned, they kind of are like the lore of the universe, like quest giver, if we're talking about like game elements. Okay. So it makes sense that Tannis is in. But if you actually look at a picture of Tannis from Borderlands, does not look like Jamie Lee Curtis at all.
Well, so the way that Jamie Lee Curtis... Oh, yeah, you're right.
so that's another thing.
That's funny. I mean, I can kind of see it. I mean, there's a big age difference, of course, but I didn't think Jamie Lee Curtis was a good fit, even without knowing the character. Like, I didn't think what her acting capabilities are matched with what that character needed to be, and I don't know how else to describe it other than I think who would have been a good match, or at least for the way that Jamie Lee Curtis was portraying it, was very similar to Wyrus from Hunger Games: Catching Fire. We can probably put a picture of her up here. Just the way she kind of was like, she was from the district with it was Wyrus and Beatty. They were kind of like the kind of socially awkward geniuses. And that's kind of what I got. It was like, here's this kind of mad genius who's also like, just has like some social like inadequacies or something like that. And
the like bit, because again, Borderlands, most people would probably say the story of it is largely a comedy. Okay. It's not meant to take itself too seriously. Yeah. So Tannis is a character supposed to be like nerding out and like taking way too much excitement over like really like things that people normally wouldn't care about. Like Tannis seemed to be like smart in this movie, but it's very much like matter of fact, like, oh well, I found like this in a warehouse, and I can't really comment on it other than that. I just don't think it's a good mix. They like did a weird thing where they got into a gunfight and Tannis had a gun and Roland got mad at her because Tannis was scary, I guess. She's obviously not someone who is combat effective. No. Maybe that is the reason, or maybe there's like a grab a cop's gun joke or something like that in there. Yeah. I don't really know what it was going for, but I feel like Tannis did not need or shouldn't have been like a person that was traveling with them. I don't think that makes a lot of sense.
She should have been more of like, here's your next clue, like here's your next step, okay, now I'm done.
Sort of like Moxie, because Moxie, they left Moxie behind and she was there. So anyway, there's some beef between Lilith and Tannis, mainly because Tannis was like the adoptive mommy. Which, again, like there was not that strong connection that would have made you believe that. Not from the game either.
No?
So basically, that's really all I have to say, right? It's at one point, Corporation was being upset at all like the doll scientists who are investigating like these mines that have various like ancient crystal energy, and a rival company from Doll basically said like, nope, we're gonna take all this actually, and so they were evacuating, and then it was the whole classic like, take my baby. And so Lilith's mom did that. There's nothing else to say. Nope. And that's not revealed right away, but you kind of almost get a feeling that it's like, I raised you, you've become exactly what your mom wanted. Yeah. And she's like, "You left me for dead," and it's like, okay,
yeah.
I have no investment of the history.
It's like I'm not convinced. I'm not invested
because that is not the cool part about Lilith's character. They save that for the second to last scene in the movie, or third to last, whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
So they escape via trash. Haha, funny. Tanis is shown as being a neat freak, which I believe that's from the games actually, but not to that effect of like maybe they felt the need to like give her a funny joke.
It was kind of I did appreciate it as an effect where they had this because at Tanis's base they said something about like electro shower or whatever, and like Tiny Tina and Greek used that, and it is kind of a cool effect because they're all dirty and stuff, and then they kind of like, and I was just thinking about like the whole costume and makeup behind that, like how effectively it was probably like a reverse process. Like, throw on the costume all clean without anything, any makeup or any crazy stuff done. Yeah, that's the reverse part. So that was kind of cool.
That is a neat thing to think about. So I get when I first wrote down, every time we do these, I always write down in our little book. I write like a 2-sentence long, like what I would basically tell somebody. And I said here, Borderlands seems like for every one step it makes forward, it takes 2 to 4 steps back and falls on its ass at the end.
Dang.
So that's like more or less what the review version is. And I think effects like that would be the step forward.
I agree.
And then like just the general interactions and like, you know, you might get 30 seconds of like, oh, that's clever, or, oh, I'm entertained. Yep. And it'd be a minute of either nothing or like, all right, that's interesting. I guess to me, the first view, again, I'm thinking about how things are changing. You know, it's like, okay, well, Tiny Tina's a major character now, whether I like it or not.
Yep.
So they bring in the whole thing about Tiny Tina being a clone alien person. I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. I'm pretty sure that's not in the Borderlands games at all.
Yeah.
Like, what a neat concept to thinking about the key, because some other things. But then we go down. They basically are finding the second key.
They already had the first one.
Tanis
knew where to get the second one, and it's a whole quest.
So they have to go down into a mine, and then in order to get down to the mine where they had a bunch of stuff, they have to go to the Bloodshot Gang, which this is an enemy faction, I think in Borderlands 2, but maybe it was in 1, I don't know. I just know it's a major, they play a much bigger role in Borderlands 2. So people will...
in Fallout 2.
So they will basically, this is like the bad bandits. Like you think the ones up there are bad, these guys are worse.
Then they kept saying like there were more and more like worse and worse ones. That's what I kept catching on to. It's like, okay.
Yeah. So there's some funny set pieces, I guess. There's a caustic tunnel where it's like obviously old pollution from a mining operation, so of course it's like acid that will instantly kill you. Oops, I almost fell in acid. Haha, well, good thing I didn't.
Yeah.
So they go up and they said, we can't beat the Bloodshot Gang. They're too strong. Foreshadowing is fun. And then so then they send in Claptrap. They almost do it I almost called him Dr. Strange joke, where they said like, I've analyzed all the I think you were in the restroom. He said I've analyzed all 14 million. I don't know what number was exactly. I think he said something like 14 million, something really high.
Interesting.
And it looks like our survival rate is, look at that, 0% is what Jack Black said as Claptrap. So then he said like, well, you could be the distraction, because that was apparently not a part of his calculation.
Yeah.
So then that's what happened. I think you came back in where he basically was a distraction via insults. So he like walks in, they all look at him, and then he does a much less funny version of what Chris Evans said in Deadpool and Wolverine, and basically was telling them all off.
Okay.
So.
But then he's like pretty much indestructible. Like he got all shot up and beat up. And stuff.
Like that's the joke, is that you can't get rid of Claptrap, and like that's almost like the bit. So it's clever.
Yeah.
that scene surprisingly kind of clicked. It's a little bit strange to be like, I distracted literally everyone here, and so you can sneak off to the place you need to be.
Yep.
But it's like, give it a pass. It's not got much going on for it, but I'll give it a pass.
Okay.
They find the artifact. There's a little bit... yeah, go ahead.
This is where I knew that the whole time, like, this was evident to me very early on. I never believed that Tiny Tina was this actual daughter of Iridia. Mm-hmm. I saw very early on that it was going to be Lilith. Like, that whole story was very clear to me. And it locked it in when it's like, oh, here's this warehouse full of, Tiny Tina said kind of like some weird jillion number of, like, crates and stuff they got to search through to find the second key. And, like, the next scene, Lilith is like, oh, I wonder what's in this box. Oh, here it is. Okay, let's go.
That's it. Yeah.
and then I was like, oh, yes, that was really cheap how she found that so quickly. But I also know that it's because she is that actual daughter of Iridia. And that's why she sensed it. And that's what,
Yep. Definitely there with you on that. So... basically, as they got their thing, yay, all right, let's get out of here. Oops, we're too loud.
Yep. Big surprise, Claptrap is too loud. This is where, like, they had the one bit of, and I think they showed it in the trailer.
It's in the trailer.
Of him just like, oh yeah.
Depositing the excess lead.
The excess lead, yeah.
Yeah, because they absorb the lead and that becomes like their new armor, so they don't rust or anything.
Oh, that's how that works?
That's like how it is apparently. So he like absorbs the metal, he like pops out his old shell and comes out with his new one, and then he had to expel the rest. And to be fair, I guess if he needed to do that, it probably would be the most opportune time is like downtime. But he was just really loud about it, and then I think someone started shouting, and then
they were all super loud.
They were all being really
being quiet.
It's like whatever. Like it's about time for people to start shooting each other.
Yep.
Wow. Looks like they were chased away by the Bloodshot gang, but they all stood their own after all. Like, man, they're so unkillable, and their fear was justified. But this was interesting. The main thing that I'll kind of point out in this action sequence, first, again, a lot of the action sequences are good. They're fun to watch.
A lot of the choreography and special effects around the action is well done.
Yeah. So Lilith uses a flamethrower. I think that's cool. But I almost saw that as like, oh no, maybe they are going to... Because at this point, Tiny Tina's in the movie, and they're like giving her magic powers. They're saying that there's a like the alien or whatever clone. Yeah. And I'm like, at this point, you said like I could see the foreshadowing that Lilith is like actually the one.
Yeah.
I'm still seeing like... I don't know how far they're going to go with Tiny Tina, man. I mean, maybe they are going to make Tiny Tina, like, the key to everything. Yeah. I feel a little silly for thinking that now, but at this point, I thought, like, maybe you know, Lilith is just going to be, like, not a siren.
Well, they do steer you away from it, because as they're escaping, once they finally get to this elevator and Roland kind of sacrifices himself. I forget, does he come back in the end? Or
yeah, he does.
Oh, he does. Oh, no, yeah, that's right. He gets up.
He basically, they're all in, like, a hallway, and they're like, oh, no, we need you to do this thing outside of the safe area.
Yep,
and he
so
says, I'll do it.
Us. Yeah.
I'll do it. And then it's like, don't worry, I'll see you soon.
Yep.
And then he, like, holds the wires together as they, like, rocket up, and then he, like, has a grenade, and he can shoot a bunch of people, and whatever.
Yep. So then this next part was, I think it was some good misdirection on their part, where their elevator's not stopping, it's like accelerating up, and it's about to shoot out of the ground. Right before it does, you see like Tiny Tina kind of wince, and then there's all this like teleportation effect.
Yeah.
And so by showing Tiny Tina do it, they kind of steer you back in that direction of like, yes, this is the kind of like main character who's most important here.
Yeah.
They later show, like, during some flashbacks when Lilith is finally piecing together, like, oh, this is who I am. They make you realize, like, oh, it was actually she who made the teleportation happen.
It fooled me.
Yeah.
It was like I was watching movie junk food. Like, it was just like you had to take it at face value. They like the told face ship thing, and that's like entirely a Lilith thing.
Yeah.
And then Tiny Tina said, "Yeah, it is like that's like her thing."
Oh.
And then Tiny Tina's like, "Wow, I did it! I have like all this power." And then Tana said, "Like, wow, yeah, I can't believe you did that." And then Krieg is like, good job, Tiny Tina. You definitely did that thing. And I'm like, wow, like they really are going into the whole like you're an alien, like And then I thought like that was
I mean, I was convinced too. I don't know what I was thinking in terms of like, okay, well, who is it now, Lilith or Tiny Tina? But I was convinced that.
I mean, the movie did its job of convincing you some subtly or whatever. Like you weren't like wincing at it. But I mean, so that happened. I was subverted. Congratulations, good job. So. Now they're in like a mine that's away from the action.
Right.
And Lilith's Claptrap says, look, I fixed the beacon to tell the big boss guy that you found Tiny Tina and that you can press it whenever you want and he'll come to you.
Yep.
And then Lilith said, did you already press it? And then he said, like, if you want it to be pressed again, then go for it.
I thought that's what he said, and I couldn't tell if I had heard it.
It wasn't immediately revealed that he pressed it. It was a well-delivered line. He basically said, like, I pressed the button.
Yeah.
And then Tiny Tina was around the corner the whole time.
Yep.
It's like, oh, you just betrayed me. And then threw a grenade, and then Lilith gets knocked unconscious. It's like, it's really funny to get knocked unconscious from a grenade, but whatever. All right.
At this point, the group kind of splits up. So, Tiny Tina, Tanis, everyone but Lilith and Claptrap and Roland are on their way to like where they're going to insert the key. I forget how.
To the vault.
Why they even know.
They had a map.
To the vault.
Yep.
And that's where they kind of realize it doesn't work. But then Atlas also shows up at that point. To kind of they know Tiny Tina's there and they're kind of
basically had followed them
and
they were behind a cool VFX wall where it's like that's cool, like
reality is whatever I want it to be.
Yeah, exactly. So that's like the setup to the basically final scene. It looks like oh no, who knows where Lilith is, and also who knows where Roland is. And comes to find out that Tiny Tina, who is supposedly the last piece of the key, in which Tanis and Lilith had previously talked about, like, oh, by the way, I don't know if this is gonna, like, if she's gonna be okay by acting as the key, or if she's gonna die.
Yeah.
To which point, Tiny Tina says, like, I'm okay. Like, all I care about is that my dad can suck a fat one, or whatever. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So then, first, when bad guy reveals it, like, first bad thing happens, oh no, I can't open the vault. Then the bad guy comes up and says, thanks, take the Tiny Tina back because we have clones of people like Tiny Tina. I don't know what exactly. He definitely otherized her.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He was like, well, keep her nervous system, but put her organs on ice or something.
That's
like
right.
That.
The MacGuffin.
He's like, we'll try the next iteration.
Give me back my MacGuffin, is what he said.
Yeah.
And then kill everyone. And then right as things were going to be blasting, Roland comes down and says, like, tries to shoot big bad guy. He can't because he has these personal shields. Omega shields, which shields are, part of the game.
Are they?
It's whatever.
Yeah.
No one else has one, but because Dr. Zed sells them. But anyway, I guess it was kind of cool to see him have a shield, like in general, as something is established there.
Yeah.
But Roland shoots him. He says, like, haha, you suck, Roland. I'm going to blow you up. And then Roland's girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, Nox, who previously, back when they first saw Tiny Tina, was the one that was commanding the troops to like capture her.
Yeah.
She's like, no, stop, you can't just kill these people because that is evil. And then he says, like, oh, I'm evil. And then instead of it being a fun cameo that gets instantly zapped, it's just one of the side characters no one cares about gets zapped away. Yep. So weak. Power creep there, I guess, except it's just to establish they have a cannon that like basically vaporizes you.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow.
So watch out for that.
So watch out for that. So then right as now everyone who is at the bottom of this canyon that is a main character is about to get totally jumped by a bunch of bandit psychos and an incineration cannon, Lilith finally comes in after learning about what she had in her past back in Firestone. So I think it's Firestone. So on her way to where the vault is, I don't know how she would know, but whatever. The full story behind Lilith being the Firehawk, who is basically the guardian, like, spirit of Pandora, like, keeper of balance, that sort of thing. It's revealed that, like, Lilith's mom knew that she was very important and that she was actually, you know, the Iridium being or whatever they call it. So basically that's revealed to her, and she comes and kind of shows off a little bit of her powers. And then basically at first she's like, okay, well, take me because I'm the key. Like, don't kill my friends because I'm a good person. I guess this is the main point of character development we have.
Pretty much. I mean, I feel like she definitely kind of switched early on where it's like, this is where I also didn't, the interactions between Lilith and Tiny Tina, they went so much back and forth between, I'm trying to kill you. Oh, I missed you. I'm sorry. I'm like, so glad you're saving me now. And like Lilith was so protective of Tiny Tina, even after she left her for dead, I mean, or at least with a grenade or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I know the original connection was bad parents.
Oh, I see.
Right. Like there was a rooftop scene at Tannis' house where it was like, oh, well, I don't like my mom because she left me for dead. And you don't like your dad because he imprisoned you or something.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point.
So that's like where it comes from, but you're right. It's not consistent.
No. So yeah, I think at that point Lilith was willing to, the way she negotiated with Atlas was, I'll go ahead and open the vault for you, but like, you know, leave everyone alone. I leave everyone safe. And then she gets her powers from opening the vault. And there's a little bit of back and forth between, okay, I'm kind of invincible against gunfire and this vaporizing gun.
I do appreciate, this is another thing from the game that they did, in fact, research somehow, but Lilith's whole ability, I can't remember if this is 100% accurate, but it has something to do with isolating someone away from the combat. I know that the siren, I believe, sucks you up into a ball, sucks your opponents up into a ball so they can't shoot at you, and that you deal more damage to them or whatever, right? So the fact that they kind of had the reverse Sizzler protectee, or that I think Tiny Tina fell into a hole and then lifted her up out of the hole. I think that was kind of neat. I think that's where the reference to the game kind of stops. So Lilith gets her powers, you know.
And this is where like some of the originality is missing, which isn't always required, but all I can think about this whole time is her powers look like Captain Marvel powers, and then also because she's the Firehawk, she just looks like Dark Phoenix. Which are also very similar powers that work in a very similar way. It's like, oh, they make me fly, they make me indestructible, they make me blow anything up. So there's kind of a drawn out fight scene between.
Basically it's like, oh crap, big scary monster, like I can definitely get overpowered. So then he like shoots her with the incineration cannon. She doesn't get incinerated because main character. And then eventually she gets beaten down to the point where her powers no longer work, and it's like, oh no. She has to actually for real like take. Sorry. They have to take. No. She was down for the count. They're like, okay, cool, where's Tiny Tina? And oops, hostage. So, so basically it's like, okay, fine, no, for reals, I'm going to let you into the vaults, even though this seems like a really stupid idea. And this is a very interesting subversion because the vault, as you would probably know, doesn't look like a whole lot.
No, not really.
Right?
That was so funny when Atlas was like, this is better than I could have ever imagined. I was like,
that's true. It's not exactly there are gold coins everywhere where you can like see. So in that respect, I agree that seems like a really out of place line. I guess he didn't know what it was going to look like.
He was on a green screen.
He was on the green stage or whatever you call that.
Green stage.
But the spoiler alert is the vault is where the last boss in the game is. it's the tentacle monster.
Oh, it
You're
is.
supposed to basically defeat that. The Crimson Raiders do get in there first. Like, you're too late. Like, you have to go into the vault and stop the world from ending because like this thing is really mad that you woke it up. Is like the whole point. And so it's like, I guess the moral of the game is that like if you're really greedy, then you're just gonna make things worse for everyone or something like that. Because it's like if you're gonna do all this really mean stuff in order to get like infinite wealth or whatever, then it's just gonna be a bad time for everyone. So, but no, for this movie, it's basically like some Doctor Strange bit where Lilith is kind of like omnipotent, like you're in my mirror dimension now. And I'm the keeper of this planet and die. And then the tentacle monster drags big bad guy away.
Yep. And then they just kind of celebrate, like you said earlier. They celebrate the fact that they survived. And Lilith was like, we enjoy the peace now. It's like, okay, but was it really? I get what you're saying about like, okay, yes, you're probably no longer under this like corporation's control, I guess. But I mean, you're still on this shit planet. So I don't know. But that's pretty much it, isn't it?
Yep, that's pretty much it. They basically say like, wow, we can finally celebrate that. I guess the Atlas Corporation it's very unclear.
Yeah, and I mean, you lose your CEO, but I mean like,
and so here's the bummer part, right? We're gonna go back to the game references. We already mentioned Dr. Zed not being in. Also mentioned Brick and Mordecai. They do reference Scooter.
Oh, do they?
Scooter shows up in the last scene. Is literally one scene of like 4 seconds long, probably max, where he and Ellie, they're the two like ride givers because Borderlands has vehicle segments. And you can spawn a vehicle, and Scooter runs the stations in Borderlands 1 and Ellie runs them in Borderlands 2. Or they kind of share it in Borderlands 2. But they're like major sources of quests. Like they give quests out all the time, and like that's how they develop them in the games, right? They are given like cameo appearances, more or less. Hammerlock is also there. He's like a British, like old-fashioned British soldier type person, but steampunk. He's very prominent in Borderlands 2. He's also there. But then, and I think like Jacobs is there in terms of, he's one of the like gun manufacturers. And they kind of allude to the whole, I just want to talk about this real quick. I guess this is kind of like nerding out. Borderlands' entire marketing is about how many different guns there are. That is like one of the biggest selling points in the game.
Like we have the most variety of guns.
If you look in like Borderlands 3, I think they say like we have 7 billion guns in our game.
Oh my god.
Or like something like that. And they're based off like an RNG system, like there's rarities, and it's like they're fun to grind. But even still, there's like these different companies, and I think it's weird that you're like saying like, why are you talking about like gun manufacturers? But it's like the Jacobs guns are like the precision sniper rifles. There's the Dahl weapons. They're kind of like just more generic, I'm gonna be honest. They have Maliwan, which are the elemental gun damages, which that wasn't even present in the movie at all. Is that there's different elemental damage types. It's a pretty big part of the movie. I guess Roland shoots pipes and there's acid and they burn, but it's like, no. So, I think the only thing that I saw from the movie that referenced, man, we love guns, is Lilith uses a lot of different guns in the scene. Yeah. She has like the spinny revolver that's probably like a, I don't know, I'm not going to nerd out and guess what gun manufacturer made it. Yeah, like spinny revolver, she had like a lever action shotgun and like a handgun. Roland has his SMG. I'm glad that he like kind of had like his iconic like thing because as I kind of mentioned, like these different classes from the original game, they're incentivized to use different types. Like Mordecai's the sniper. He has a thing to distract people so he can snipe them. People like they stand still. Brick, he uses like the machine guns because he's like the tank or whatever. The Psycho has his club. He's incentivized to not really use guns and use his club. And there's just not a whole lot of that here. They have the vending machines, which is again a major part of the game is that you get all your stuff from like vending machines, and it's like Claptrap talks to one. He like hits on it, I think, as he's getting caught in the town in a really stupid way.
Yeah.
But you know, it's not a whole lot to be impressed. So, in terms of world building, I think other than like the set design and the environment, in terms of like the actual like what people enjoy about the game, they didn't really care. They tried to do their own thing. I don't think it really lands.
Yeah.
So, they did reference in the not a post-credit scene, so don't wait until the end of the movie. We got suckered. But there's a mini reference at the end of the main role where they have all the artsy names or whatever. There's Claptrap dancing, and it is a reference to Claptrap's birthday party, where it's a quest where you basically invite all the major NPCs of the game to go to Claptrap's birthday party, and then he none of them, they all find a reason out of it, but you obviously are helping him give out invites, so you have to sit there, and he dances by himself, and it's like a 2-minute long like segment where you just have to watch him dance, and he gets really progressively more sad than nobody wants to be friends with him. I can see them not wanting to be friends with this version of Claptrap, because again, I think that a lot of the characters in this movie are kind of butts. In the game, they're a lot more likable. Again, like Claptrap's more self-deprecating. They usually make jokes about the situation they're in, but it's never about like, you know, mean to other people, I guess, or distrusting.
I wonder if they thought that they could do like here's your likable team of unlikables, like Guardians of the Galaxy. You know, it's like, they're kind of nobody's alone, but they come together and do a good thing, and now you like them. But
trying to capture that for sure. So
why is it called Borderlands? They didn't mention that all in the movie. Not that they had to, but like I'm still wondering.
I mean, Pandora is the Borderlands. I think it's mainly that there's only these little settlements, and then everything else is like a frontier. Okay, that's my guess. I really have no idea.
Just a little thing I thought of. I want to go back to the reason I didn't realize that Jack Black was playing Claptrap was partly because of just like the voice effects they were doing on it, but they could have done. There's a missed opportunity to maybe give him some of Jack Black's character. Because he's so like making little noises and stuff. They could have done stuff like that.
That makes a lot of sense.
Would that make sense for Claptrap's character?
He makes a lot of noises. Like he again, like with his birthday party, or like he'll be walking around town and be like, because that's 2012.
Jack Black totally could have done that.
He could have done that.
That's a huge missed opportunity. We didn't speak about what our ratings were. We said the audience, like some of the audience scores. What did you give it?
I gave it a 3.
3
out of 10.
3 out of 10. That's what I gave it. Yep, 3 as well.
Audience gave it is that like I think at 50% now. 50, again, there's stuff here. But it's mainly just the thrill of seeing. Like not the characters on screen, not even like the same ones from the game, and not the ones you might expect. Pretty much what you see is what you get. Because the trailer is pretty revealing.
I'd say so.
It was like, the ship blows up, or like, they're all gonna fight. So I don't know.
My closing remark would be, I do think there were some cool things to maybe make as props from the movie. Most notable were like, I know Lilith used a ton of different guns, but it was like kind of the main one she was using at first. I thought looked really cool, and I know especially if it's like. Maybe if people haven't already made files for the movie, there are definitely files out there from the games.
For sure.
I haven't done a ton of like, print this thing, sand it, paint it, make it look like the actual movie prop. I haven't done a ton of that. I would like to do more of that. I could see myself doing some of that from Borderlands.
Yeah, because again, you especially mentioned the guns. There's a lot of work that goes into designing the guns and the loot boxes for the guns. Like they're very much like exciting things. Like I would definitely like if I had like a case that opened up like a Borderlands loot box. Like it's like a whole elaborate thing where it's like, and then like there's like 3 panels that like flip up or something like that.
Noted.
Yeah, for sure. The guns, even I think the props were amazing. I think it's definitely a highlight of the movie.
Absolutely,
for sure. So, costumes were pretty good.
Yes, they were.
casting questionable. I think the actor, I don't think it was the actor's fault per se.
I think it was just a matching the actors to their roles.
I definitely think that was a factor, or there just wasn't that much regard for the source material. So I understand sometimes you just can't, that's not the best way to do it, especially if you're trying to go for a broader audience. But overall, I think that most people kind of expected this movie to not be great, and it's not really that great.
No. Yeah.
All right.
Cool. Well, that is it for season 2, episode 2, Borderlands. Thanks for coming back with us on this one. We look forward to having you back next time.
Yes. In the meantime, like that smash subscribe button and keep up with us on Twitter at JBO Podcast. It is down in the description. Let us know your thoughts on this episode. Feel free to leave recommendations for future reviews as well. It's going to be a little bit of a break that we're going to be having in between this upload. It's not going to be as nearly as often as the gap between Deadpool and this episode, but it shouldn't take you too long, so we definitely are going to have some more stuff out this year. And but if you do ever have any recommendations, we'd love to hear them. Any comments as well. Thanks for listening, and
stay juicy.
Stay juicy.
Yay!
Yay.